Hey, I'm Chris Rottmull with Super-Sod. Today I want to talk to you about why pre-emergent herbicide is the #1 trick for weed control in your lawn. Pre-emergents are not just what we recommend for homeowners, but they're also what we use on the farm to control weeds. There's a key difference between pre-emergent and post-emergent, in that a pre-emergent actually forms a chemical barrier on the ground that prevents weed seeds from germinating. A post-emergent works opposite, in that the weed actually has to be present for it to be effective. So pre-emergents give you the option to take care of those weeds before they ever become an eyesore. There's several things that can affect the performance of pre-emergents. Namely, you have to get it watered in as soon as you apply it, or at least within 24 hours. Too much rain is also something that can really limit the protection you get from pre-emergent. Obviously, that's not something you can control, but if we have a particularly rainy season, you need to understand that your pre-emergent is not going to perform the way you thought it would. Bad timing is probably the biggest mistake we see with pre-emergents. If you wait until the weed is already there, or even if it's not visible, but the weed seed is germinated, then the pre-emergent is going to provide you no control over that weed. There are several management activities that can also limit the performance of pre-emergent, namely dethatching and aerating while you're depending on that pre-emergent for control. On the farm, we've been growing sod for over 70 years now. We've used nearly every pre-emergent you could possibly imagine. After all that time, we really think prodiamine is the best fit for the homeowner. The trade name for that one is Barricade. Feel free to use pre-emergent herbicide on your lawn and your ornamental beds. The one thing I would say is if you plan on planting flowers by way of seed or overseeding your lawn, you do not want to use pre-emergents, as they will prevent those seeds from germinating. Pre-emergents are so much easier to use than a post-emergent for several reasons, but first and foremost, they're cheaper. Take Poa annua for an example. It's a very expensive weed to control once it's established in your lawn. A pre-emergent will take care of that before it ever even becomes a problem. You got to think about how little chemical is needed to kill a plant before it gets established versus how much it takes to kill that plant once it's grown up and is established. Second, the reason is because they come in granular form. There are several post-emergent herbicides that come in a granular form, but not that many. But most all pre-emergents are. Granular form is so much easier to spread, and it's so much easier to get spread evenly. Pre-emergents are much more effective than post-emergents. Again, go back to Poa. It is very, very expensive and very difficult to take out of a lawn. But with a pre-emergent, you're getting rid of that weed before it ever even becomes a problem. So they are much more effective. Last thing is, a pre-emergent, if you stay on their program, will get better every single year because you're not allowing those plants to grow up and distribute more seeds into your soil bank. You're having less and less weed pressure every single year. Pre-emergents are actually a much greener option as well. First off, as we've already covered, they use a lot less chemical. And we would never recommend something for your lawn that's not safe for you and your family. But common sense says the less herbicide you have to use, the better off you're going to be. So again, pre-emergents are a much greener option for that reason. Pre-emergents create much less contact with non-target plants, especially when you take into account the spray drift you get from using a liquid post-emergent. Things like ornamental plants, rose bushes, and even vegetable gardens are not at risk by using pre-emergents. Pre-emergents are actually much safer to use as well. There is so much less exposure for you, your kids, and your pets when you're on a good pre-emergent routine. Pre-emergent should be effective for 6 to 12 weeks, and as we spoke of, a lot of that depends on how much rainfall you get during that period. We recommend a fall and a spring app. The spring app actually being a split application. September for the fall, and then again in February and April for the spring app. Ground tips are really critical for the performance of your pre-emergent. In the spring, when ground temps hit 55 degrees, that's when your weeds really become active. And it's not until the ground temp hits 65 degrees that your lawn really wakes up, and at 70 degrees, it's really in full swing and has the ability to choke out those weeds on its own. So what pre-emergents are doing is providing you that control from the 55 to the 70 degree ground temperature, where the lawn is not healthy enough to choke out those weeds on its own. In the fall, it's kind of exactly opposite. You're wanting to put out pre-emergents when your ground temp hits 65 degrees, and then as it lowers down to 55 degrees and those winter weeds become more active, you need that pre-emergent to provide a window control for you. Because pre-emergent's job is to prevent growth, you need to be cautious when using them on newly established lawns. Our guidelines are as follows. For centipede, that lawn needs to be established for 1 year. For zoysia, same thing. It needs to be established for 1 year before using pre-emergents. For fescue, our guideline is 4 months. And for Bermuda, it's 6 months. One thing you need to be aware of is if you plan on establishing a lawn by way of sod or seed within the next 3 months, you shouldn't be applying pre-emergent. So what are the alternatives to using a pre-emergent? First off, you're going to end up with a whole lot of unsightly weeds. The worst part of that is a lot of them are going to be hard to control grassy weeds. I used POA for an example before, but that's a very difficult weed to control and very expensive to get rid of. There's also going to be injury to turf grass by using post-emergent herbicides. Even if a herbicide is labeled for the variety of turf that you have, there's still going to be some injury there. You have to expect that. Also, there's the potential for injury to both ornamentals and vegetable gardens when using post-emergent herbicides that may drift away from where you actually applied them. So we've talked about how important the timing is with pre-emergents. Timing with the weather, the ground soil temperatures, and upcoming conditions. If that seems a little overwhelming to you, we have a solution for you, and it's Lawn Coach. Lawn Coach is a subscription-based program where we send you the products that you need for your lawn when you need them, and we take all that guesswork out of it for you. But there's more than just pre-emergents and fertilizers for you. We offer consultations, virtual visits, and annual soil testing that we actually go over the results with you to keep your lawn on track. So let's see how much you've learned. This pop quiz is not graded, it's just to reinforce some facts. So sit back and enjoy the game. Would your pet rather use post or pre-emergents? I promise your pet would rather you use pre-emergents. How old should a zoysia lawn be before applying pre-emergent? Your zoysia lawn really needs to be 12 months old before you apply pre-emergent. How soon should you water after applying pre-emergent? You should really try to get the irrigation running within 24 hours of applying pre-emergent. At what soil temperature do weeds become active? Your weeds are really going to get going when the soil temperature hits 55 degrees. Is it cheaper to control POA before or after it germinates? It is much cheaper to control POA and all weeds before they germinate.